Hey everybody. Thank you. All right. As Clutchy said, my name's Patrick. And a personal fun fact about myself that I'd like to share with you guys is that I actually worked at a zoo in high school. Yeah, so I just want to put it out there. If you know me, I can almost guarantee that you already know that because I don't shut up about it. I mean, it's definitely the coolest thing about me though, so I think it's fair. But I do feel the need to clarify just a couple things. No, I did not ride the giraffes. No, I did not play with the gorillas. And no, I did not feed the lions. And based on my experience of telling people that I work at a zoo, that should pretty much answer any questions that you have. Working at a zoo, it's not really as crazy as it might sound, and I wasn't really going all Joe Exotic out there, but I do think I still had a pretty cool job, okay, guys? I answered people's questions and ran activities for kids, so, who's the real winner here? But yeah, it's not a super crazy time working at the zoo, not as much as you might expect, The tigers aren't breaking out every other Tuesday or anything like that. I'm pretty sure the craziest thing that happened when I worked there was a turtle escaped one time. No joke, that happened. They made the radio call for it and everything, and I'm just thinking, wow, how far could it have gotten? That you can't just pick it up and put it back in its thing, But anyways, so no, there may not have been any, dangerous animals escaping, but I do still have some pretty fun stories from the zoo. Most of them involve lying to guests. Actually, pretty much all of them involve lying to guests. We did a lot of that. I'd like to say it wasn't on purpose, but it most certainly was. But I think it's justified, okay? So just hear me out. Unfortunately, lying to guests, it wasn't always as fun as it sounds. Because sometimes guests would ask us what animals were doing at a given moment, and we had to lie to them to protect them from the deep, dark truth of what was really going on. Because, God, sometimes, when a boy animal and a girl animal love each other very much, so yeah, the animals had sex sometimes. Not really anything we can do about that. But one thing that I hoped would never happen was a small child walking up to me and asking what was going on. And that did happen. Almost immediately, actually. So I'd had this job for maybe 3 weeks, right? And this little kid walks up to me and he's like, "What are the tapers doing?" Now, if you don't know what a taper is, it's basically imagine a cross between a pig, an anteater, and an elephant, and you'll get the idea. But anyways, I look behind me, and the tapers are just absolutely going to town, right? Now, believe it or not, they actually briefed us on how to handle this exact situation at our job orientation. I know, it's weird. This lady from HR comes in and she's like, "Okay, so if two animals are having sex and a small child asks what's going on, this is what you do." And it's like, I guess it makes some sense, That probably happens from time to time. But it was just treated so mundanely, At what other job is that a sentence that you're ever going to hear in a job orientation? But anyways, so I'm thinking about what you said, and I go to step 1, which is assess how old this kid is, right? So I look at this kid, and he's maybe 5 years old. And trust me when I tell you, that is not a good thing. Because if the kid's just a little bit older, I can say things like mating or procreating and sound all sciencey and technical, and they'll kind of get the gist, They won't press any further. But if I tell this 5-year-old that the tapers are procreating, he's gonna be like, "What does that mean?" And then I have to give him the sex talk, and no one wants that. So that wasn't gonna work, so I move on to step 2, which is look to the kid's parent or guardian or whoever, and see if they want to help, right? And I think that makes sense. you know you're a kid. I'm just, scrawny 15-year-old in my obnoxious bright yellow zoo shirt. Like, you don't want me answering this question, so maybe you distract the kid, or ask a question of your own, or give your own answer. So I look at this kid's mom, right? Just a quick glance like, hey, help. And she gives me nothing. She is just silent, and she's staring back at me like, you're on your own, kid, good luck. Don't mess it up. So, that's not fair, right? Like, what am I supposed to do in that situation? Well, I'll tell you. What you're supposed to do is lie. And that brings us to step number 3. If the kid is too young to get it, and the parent isn't helpful, you just make something up. Off the top of your head, anything, who cares, right? And I kind of wish that HR lady had spent a little more time on this step, because I had no examples to go off of. I was going in completely blind here. And so I basically just said the first thing that came to my mind, and I was like, oh, they're, wrestling. Yup, that's just how they play with each other. Now, luckily, the kid was 5, so he bought it. And thank God for that, because I don't like any of the scenarios that could have come up if he hadn't. Because either A, he doesn't believe it, presses me further, and then his mom gets mad because I taught her 5-year-old son about sex. Or B, he presses me further, I mess up, and his mom laughs at me because I look like an idiot. And quite frankly, my self-esteem at the time was not nearly high enough to handle either of those situations, so I'm glad they never came about. But lying to guests, it actually was fun, when we weren't specifically told to do it. Because then you could go off script a little bit, freestyle. Like one time, a friend of mine, she was answering questions over at the giraffe exhibit, and someone walks up to her and asks her the name of the zebra that lives with the giraffes. Now, why they're asking about the name of that zebra is beyond me. I mean, come on, you're looking at 2 giraffes, beautiful animals, the tallest animals in the world, and all you want to know about is the stripy horse that's only in there because it's mean to all the other stripy horses. And yeah, there were plenty of other zebras, but this one in particular was just a total douche. Or as we said at the zoo, he's very aggressive and territorial, just like a male zebra would be in the wild. So we moved him in with the giraffes because they were too big for him to bully, and they didn't see him, so they couldn't not get along. Yeah. So, basically, my friend had no idea what this zebra's name is, because he doesn't matter. He's not important. Why would anyone care? So, she just does what any sane and rational person would do in her situation, and comes up with something off the top of her head. She says the first name that comes into her mind, which is, of course, Marv. Yup, that's what she went with, Marv. And I've got to say, she's a very nice person, but what a stupid answer. I mean, Marv? But here's the thing. Since she worked there, she had her yellow shirt and her education staff name tag, so they just bought it. They just accepted that this zebra's name was Marv without questioning it. And so she's telling me the story, right? And there are a couple different things going through my head. First of all, why do they care about this zebra? I mean, it is a lone zebra. He doesn't do anything. He's not even the most interesting horse-adjacent animal in the general vicinity. I mean, there are giant donkeys with dreadlocks that we have on loan from the French government just down the path. Ask about them. Their names are cooler. But beyond that, back to the main point of the story, why was Marv the first name that came to her head? Like, it's not that weird of a name, right? But I can't imagine why it would ever be anyone's first choice. Like, was she a big fan of the burglar from Home Alone? Was she coming up with nicknames for Looney Tunes characters and she just did Marvin the Martian? Was she thinking of Marty, like the zebra from Madagascar, but decided halfway through that it would be a little too on the nose, so she changed it? Actually, my money's on that third one. But the point is, as far as we were concerned, this zebra's name was now Marv. And I feel obligated to point out that, of course, this wasn't true. We did look up the zebra's name, and it was nothing close to Marv. And now I'm sure you're all wondering, well, what was the zebra's name? Yeah, me too. I don't remember what the zebra's name was, because we just kept calling him Marv. And again, he didn't come up a lot, because no one had any reason to care about this zebra. But on the rare occasion that someone made the mistake of asking me his name, I always just said it was Marv, and they had to believe me because I worked there and they didn't. And that was honestly like my favorite part about working at the zoo. You just had to believe everything that I said because I had my yellow shirt, my education staff name tag, my official zoo water bottle, you know? And you just had to believe everything I said because I got paid a minimum wage to be there. I mean, I could tell you right now that birds and horses are actually really closely related from an evolutionary standpoint, and that's where we got the myth of the Pegasus. And it's like, I'm probably lying, but I'm also supposed to know that sort of thing, so can you really be sure? Now, yeah, that kind of power, that can really go to your head, but luckily I have amazing self-control. So I only lied every once in a while, like when the tapers were having sex. You know, like a good employee. So the same summer that the world was introduced to Marv, one of the giraffes actually had a baby, and that was really exciting stuff, right? But I couldn't tell anyone, because they made us sign confidentiality agreements for that sort of thing. Because, you know, God forbid I tell 7 people that there might be a new baby giraffe before the zoo makes their over-the-top Instagram post about it 2 months after the fact, just to be sure that the baby doesn't die. Here's the thing, though. The baby almost did die this time. And I just want to clarify ahead of time, she's fine. She's an adult now, she's doing great. But there were some complications at birth that meant the giraffes were off exhibit for basically 2 months. So there'd be a bunch of really excited people going to the zoo. The giraffes were a big draw. They'd walk up to the giraffe exhibit, and they'd just see good old Marv standing around, not doing anything. And they'd just be left disappointed, wondering why there's some stupid horse in the giraffe field. So, you know, naturally, a lot of people were like asking, hey, where are the giraffes? And right at the beginning of this whole ordeal, there was a family that walked up to me and asked me that, like, hey, what's going on? Where are the giraffes? And so I knew that I couldn't tell the truth because of the confidentiality agreement. So I had to make something up on the spot. So I was like, oh, you know, they have their yearly physicals today. And you know, I had my yellow shirt, I had my name tag, I had my water bottle, I had my, you know, official looking clicker to count how many people I'd brilliantly educated that day. And so they bought it, you know? And I think it was a pretty believable lie. So I was really proud of myself. So proud of myself, in fact, that I used that one again, and again, and again, every day, for the whole summer. And now look, I can't say for sure that I told the same person on multiple occasions that the giraffes had their yearly physicals that day. But at the same time, the zoo did run a summer camp, and most of the kids who went for the whole summer. And boy, did those kids love the giraffes. So realistically speaking, I probably told those summer camp kids at least once a week that the giraffes were on their yearly physicals, and they bought it every time, because I was a figure of authority to them. How wild is that, right? They'd just be like, oh man, the giraffes have their physicals again? And I'd just be like, yeah, I guess so, crazy, right? Hey, fingers crossed, maybe they'll be out tomorrow. And I don't really know where lying to children lands me on an ethical standpoint, but you know, what's done is done, right? And honestly, the best part about this was I didn't even have to lie in this scenario, because they told us to just play dumb and say we didn't know what was going on with the giraffes, because it wasn't our job to know. But you know what? That would have been boring. And who was I supposed to be? Some chump who didn't know what was going on with the giraffes? I mean, after all, I was the one with confidential information. And, just a quick side note to all of this, right? So, when the baby giraffe was healthy enough to go out on the exhibit, they had to remove Marv because he bullied it. And that really hammers home just how much of a dick Marv was, right? I mean, he was just the worst. The second he was in the general vicinity of any animal within his, general size range, he just acted like a total jerk. And will you believe it? Someone had the audacity to ask me where he was. It's a zebra. You're looking at a baby giraffe, the miracle of life, and you want to know where this one specific zebra is. There is a whole field of them, 50 feet in the other direction. Why do you care? But I couldn't say that to a guest, because then I'd get fired, and that wouldn't be cool. So instead, I put on my best fake customer service smile and said, "Oh, well, unfortunately, Marv can't be out with the baby giraffe because he's very aggressive and territorial, just like a male zebra would be in the wild." So it did become a very important issue, though, right? Like, what do we do with Marv? Couldn't put him with the giraffes. Couldn't put him with the zebras. So where did we put him? We put him down. Yeah, that was a bit much. I'm sorry. He's totally fine. That might have crossed a line there. He's doing great. He's back out with the giraffes. But I just can't wrap my head around why you guys all care about him so much. You guys have been great. That's all I got for you.